Now, the last 24 hours have been pretty unstable. Not in the sense of huge explosions or dramatic breaking news every hour, but in a quieter, more important way. Now, on the surface, it might look like nothing much has actually changed, but underneath that, things have actually shifted in a direction that matters. So instead of just reacting to headlines, let me walk you through exactly what has happened in these last 24 hours, what's actually new, what's just noise, and what this really all means going forward. So first, let's talk about the big headline, the whole situation between Trump and Iran, and whether we're actually getting any closer to any real ceasefire. And as for a short answer, not really. So in fact, if anything, things quietly moved steps backwards. Now, the latest update is that Trump is not happy with Iran's newest proposal. And that matters more than it actually sounds, because the disagreement isn't over something minor, it's about timing and priorities. Now, Iran is basically saying, let's slow things down, delay the nuclear discussions, while the US is pushing hard to deal with that immediately. Now, when both sides dig in like that, negotiations don't collapse overnight, but they do stall, and that's exactly where we are right now. We are stuck. Now, the part that people aren't even talking about enough of is that we are no longer really in that breaking news, active escalation every hour phase. So what we're seeing right now is something a bit more subtle, but honestly more dangerous long term. And it's kind of like a frozen conflict. So think less of these war headlines every minute and more of ongoing tension that never fully goes away. Naval pressure, sanctions, positioning, and all of that is still happening, just without a clear resolution in sight. Now, that shift matters because markets and governments react very differently to stalemate than they do to a short-term crisis. Which brings us to the next big thing that has happened in the last 24 hours. Now, oil. Oil prices have jumped again. Now, they are pushing past that $110 mark. And this is obviously not random. It's directly tied to what's happening around the Strait of Hormuz. As you know, one of the most critical oil routes in the world. So currently we are in a very difficult situation where things don't look like they're going to get better anytime soon. So when traders see negotiations stalling and tensions staying high, they price in a risk immediately. And that is why oil is actually moving. And then you get the third piece of the puzzle, the stock market. We're actually seeing stocks pull back again. Not a total collapse or anything dramatic, but definitely a shift in sentiment. Now, futures are down, especially in tech. And that's important because just recently markets were actually climbing on the hope that a ceasefire would hold and maybe even turn into something more stable. And now that optimism is fading and markets hate uncertainty more than almost anything. So when we go from this, maybe this is a getting resolved, to actually we might be stuck here for a while, the money starts getting more cautious, obviously, as we can see. And now if we were to zoom out for a second, the real picture currently looks like this. So we had a moment where things looked like they might stabilize, but obviously that hasn't happened. Instead, we're drifting into a longer term standoff. Not peace, not full escalation, but something in between. Now, I want to quickly break down into what's actually new versus what's just ongoing noise, because this is where a lot of people actually get confused. Now, and what's new in the last 24 hours is pretty specific. Trump pushing back on Iran's proposal, that's new. Talks losing momentum, also new. Oil jumping again, new. And stocks reacting to that shift, also new. But a lot of what you're hearing isn't new at all. The ceasefire being fragile, well, that's been the case. Tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, ongoing. Sanctions, pressure, positioning, none of that has obviously changed overnight. And that distinction matters because it tells you the direction we're moving in. So we're not escalating rapidly, but we're also not resolving anything. We're hovering in this uncomfortable middle ground. And honestly, that might be the most important takeaway from all of this. Because markets, governments, and even everyday people can handle clear outcomes, good or bad. What's harder to deal with is this kind of prolonged uncertainty where nothing fully breaks, but nothing gets fixed either. So if you're watching this and wondering what to pay attention to next, it's not just whether something dramatic happens overnight, it's whether the stalemate continues, or finally cracks one way or the other. And until that happens, expect more of what we saw today. Pressure on markets, spikes in oil, and headlines that sound big but don't actually move things forward. And that is where we are right now and what's actually changed. And now make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the videos upcoming. There will be many things coming, as we do have a very fragile situation, and I'll definitely keep you all updated on what is to come. Now, don't forget to check out Evedex in the description below, which is a fully decentralized exchange that you can use for all of your trading. And as always, hit that like button, it will be greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.